President Biden will not be on the ballot in the New Hampshire primary per the Hill POTUS campaign and the state Democratic Party. Campaign manager Julie Chavez Rodriguez cited guidance put forth by the Democratic National Committee that urged Democratic campaigns to forego placing candidates' names on the ballot. In a statement on X, formerly Twitter, State Democratic Party Chair Raymond Buckley pointed out that the president was already winning New Hampshire, adding voters there, quote, known and trust Joe Biden. That's why he is leading Trump in New Hampshire by double digits.
Meanwhile, GOP presidential contender Vivek Ramaswamy tore into Biden's camp, writing on X, quote, identity politics is a cancer on America and now the electoral process. Apparently, New Hampshire is too white for Biden. Well, freedom doesn't have a skin color. New Hampshire is the first in the nation primary for a reason, and we're going to keep it that way.
Third-party candidates are shaking things up in the 2024 presidential race. A new poll by The Messenger and Harris reveals RFK Jr. and Cornel West independent campaigns are hurting both Biden and GOP frontrunner Donald Trump. The ex-president led Biden 45 to 41%, but when RFK Jr. and West were thrown in the mix, the Don's lead dipped, earning 38% of the vote, followed by Biden at 35%, Kennedy at 13%, and West at 2%.
The migrant crisis is apparently pummeling Biden's poll numbers in New York, a deep blue stronghold. In 2020, he won there by 23 percentage points, but his lead over Trump has shrunk in New York to just 9 percentage points, which a Siena College poll found might be attributable to the influx of migrants in the Big Apple.
Well, I mean, I think the thing that jumps out to me there is those RFK Jr. numbers are pretty big. 13%?
Well, I mean, he was up at 21%, right?
Well, that was specifically against Biden. I thought those were that was a just running against Biden number, right? This is against both of them.
Sure.
It's sizable to me.
I mean, I do think. I mean, the news of it, the relevance of it, is the extent to which the third-party candidates seem to be hurting Trump more than Biden, which is a big turnaround from, I think, what people might have considered in the beginning when he was running as a Democrat and was getting so much attention from right-leaning news sources, perhaps for that very reason, because he was a contender to Joe Biden. I continue to wonder if we're going to see any change of attitude toward him. Now, I frankly haven't seen him in as many high-profile interviews. It's been a while. I'm not checking on a daily basis, but since I've seen him do a Twitter Spaces or anything like that, I have seen him do more podcasts and things like that, but not as many, certainly not the town halls and the primetime Fox News segments that it was doing in the earlier days. And I wonder if that is because there's a concern that he's going to hurt the Republican Party.
So what about this story of Biden not being a participant in New Hampshire? So obviously you've talked about Biden's efforts to kick things off in a state that is more favorable to him, South Carolina, and that being so I don't agree with Vivek that like New Hampshire has some right to be the first voting state. But it is also at the same time true that Biden wants to kick things off in a state favorable to him.
Yeah, if Vivek wants to say New Hampshire is first for a reason, I think he should articulate that reason. Now, is Biden doing a cynical reordering of the states to benefit him electorally? Of course that's true. If you go back to 2020, Biden didn't win a primary state until the fourth one, South Carolina, and he fared pretty poorly in some of those first contests, I think coming in fourth or fifth in some of those early states. So I understand why he would not want any of them to go first, including Nevada, which is in no way a white state. It has a very large Latino population. So he didn't just skip over Iowa and New Hampshire. He also skipped over Nevada. So it's not clear how or why Vivek is injecting race into the conversation this way. I'm not sure this is an identity politics move, unless by identity politics you mean specifically black voters who he does do well with. But I think people should be more precise in their terms. What does identity politics mean? If you want to say that Joe Biden is trying to court a base that has been very sympathetic to him, black voters, and then skip to a black state, I think that you should just say that.
Yeah, it's not really about identity politics, but it is about Biden trying to stack the schedule in a way that's favorable to him, which he tried to do.
And there are many other states, of course, that he did well in that aren't South Carolina. But I do think that the Democratic Party is able to launder it and kind of justify it by saying that some of the earlier states were less representative of the American public population-wise, and to get a better sense, since early primary wins do tend to set the stage for what later states want to do, it makes more sense to have a state that's more reflective of the broader demographic go first. I mean, I don't think that's actually bad logic, but I do think it's very interesting that even the Democratic Party is not interested in a state like Nevada going first when there are more Latinos in America than black people. And again, because it's not because they actually
want
care
a
about
pro-Biden state going first.
Exactly.
Well,
and race is just.
And I don't understand this comment from the spokesperson that Biden already has Biden's doing well in the general election in New Hampshire against Trump, so we don't need to participate there. Yeah. What? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Now that I'm looking at it again, it kind of feels like he's saying, even if New Hampshire voters are very, very angry about being booted from the front seat, that they're going to suck it up and eat it. Just like all the Democratic voters always suck it up and eat it when we tell them to vote blue no matter who, no matter what the Democratic Party does, because what do they have to do? What's their alternative? And the polls suggest that they're going to want a Democrat. They're going to want a generic Democrat against the generic Republican, so they're going to vote for Biden no matter how much he disrespects them in the primary.
Despite all these polls we're seeing in swing states, in Michigan, in Arizona, showing a very competitive race, if not Trump sometimes well ahead. I know this is just one snapshot, and we'll take many more snapshots as we get closer to the actual election. But I wonder if behind the scenes, Team Biden is really, really worried, really sweating. They have to be. How could they look at these things and not be?
I would think that they would have to be, except, I'm sorry, I brought this up yesterday, that Ron Klain's response to someone raising
what are Muslims going to do? Vote for Trump.
No, he specifically said Trump voters are going to Trump. So he accused Muslim voters who are specifically upset about almost 6,000 Palestinian innocents being killed in Gaza at this point, and our government facilitating this and funding it and potentially putting troops on the ground, and missiles that are being picked up in Gaza having American manufacturers from Minnesota written on the bottom of them. People who are articulating that very specific concern are being dismissed by the former White House chief of staff as Trump voters, core-based Muslim voters in a state that you need like Michigan. I mean, so I'd like to think that people are concerned, but that kind of a response does not express concern. It reflects indignation, an entitlement to people's votes that we frankly have seen, I think, most encapsulated by Hillary Clinton's attitude in 2016, but which has been very pervasive in the Democratic Party, and I think might come back and bite it in the tuchus.
Yeah, well, we'll see. More Rising right after this.